Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Think Small podcast. I'm your host, Denise Steinbring, and I want to start with a number, 750,000. That's how many companies in 170 countries depend on today's guest's software to label every single product they make or ship. The medication in your hospital bag, the barcode on your grocery delivery, the compliance marking on the chemical container. Every single physical product that moves through a supply chain has a label on it. And there's a good chance that that label was designed, printed, and managed by software that most people have never heard of. That's not an accident, it's a business model. Doug Niemeyer is the president and general manager of TexLynx Americas, the Americas division of the world's leading barcode label design, print automation, and label management software company. TexLynx has been at this for 30 years. It has never taken venture capital. It has 1,500 resellers across the globe and a 41-person Americas team that covers North America and South America, the Caribbean, Australia, and New Zealand. Doug has spent part of this company, has been part of it for 25 of those 30 years, starting as an account manager and building his way up to president. He's been named a rock star of supply chain twice, a Lifetime Achievement Award winner in the supply chain technology twice, and most recently recognized for TexLynx Network with TaylorMade Golf. Doug, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining the Think Small podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Denise. I appreciate it. Thanks for that intro. Just one clarification. I've been at TexLynx for 17 years, not 25, but 25.
Okay, close enough.
Great.
Almost 2 decades. Thank you for the correction.
No problem.
Okay, so before we get into the company and the big questions, I'd like the audience to understand the career that built up to this, because you've been there for 17 years in one niche. That's almost unheard of in modern business. So walk me through that decision, or maybe the series of decisions that kept you there.
Yeah, I mean, I think big part of it is just the corporation and the people that work for the company in general, and the idea that the software that we sell really does. We're very proud of the software that we sell. We're very proud what it does for customers. So part of the reason why I've stayed with TexLynx for so long is the technology, but it's also been the people and the impact and the influence that I've been able to have in helping to build and shape the culture of primarily the TexLynx Americas business unit, but really participating in the worldwide business as well. And so just building out on that, helping to develop careers and really working with individuals to help them attain their aspirations outside of just making sure that we're delivering good product to the customer.
Awesome. Well, we talked about those 750,000 customers across many, many countries, right? But almost none of those people buying those products have ever heard of TexLynx. You are literally the invisible infrastructure of global commerce. What does it take to build a world-leading company in a market that most people, including most of your customers' own CEOs, don't think about until something goes catastrophically wrong?
Big one I would say is stability. The reality that the software that we have is built on a very, very solid framework, been proven over time, and continues to stay up with the time, stay up with the regulations, stay up with the compliance, offers innovative solutions and functions that customers are requesting, and really though is primarily the focus around what we're good at, which is barcoding, and so we tend to really stay in our lane, so to speak. I mean, of course, we touch multiple different facets of identification and management around barcoding. There's so many different companies on the hardware side and maybe ancillary software pieces as well. But really, it's the point of offering a solution that we're sort of the experts at and want to make sure that we continue to stay experts at.
Okay. And have you seen companies like what's the biggest, most expensive mistake that you've seen customers do because they've treated barcodes as an afterthought?
Yeah, I would say that probably the most expensive mistake that customers make, maybe not so much mistakes, but is just doing it the same way that they always have. And so, is that Is that successful? Yes. But in the world of efficiency and continuous improvement and automation, when you continue to do the same thing that you've done year in and year out over many years, it's effective, but maybe not as efficient. So the mistakes that they make is kind of keep doing things the way they've done it 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. Because the crazy thing about this software in this space is companies run this software for a long period of time. Um, Interestingly enough, they'll run it on operating systems that aren't even supported anymore. But it's in a production environment and they don't want to change because they're like, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. So they tend to just let it keep running. And that speaks a little bit to, the CEOs that don't even know who we are because it's just running in the background. That's a really good thing. It makes for a really solid environment. But it's also a challenge because they don't upgrade, they don't update. So if something does catastrophically happen, maybe a system goes down or a computer ceases to work, and they lose, the ability to be able to reactivate software that's 15 or 20 years old, because it's not in an operating system that even works anymore, that becomes a significant issue. And if they can't print the labels, because the computer doesn't even boot up anymore, then they can't obviously get their products to where they need to go, which is going to cost them money, and going to cost them headaches. Downtime is definitely a conversation that we have with companies all of the time, and just the idea that when they're looking at how we can make our supply chain more efficient, how can we make our beginning to end more efficient, people tend to think about everything else other than the barcode labeling aspect of it. But there is a lot of opportunity to gain efficiency inside of automating barcode label printing and label design and overall management and traceability as well. So yes, do mistakes happen? Of course they do. And there are critical mistakes that can happen, especially if you don't have the right symbologies in the regulated environments, or from a quality control perspective, or if a label gets printed with incorrect images on it or incorrect data on it and it goes somewhere, then recalls could happen. Not because maybe a product was bad, but because something was on there that you shipped to a third party. You were a third party and you're shipping it to another company, to put inside of their product or put on their shelves. But if it's not received the right way because you didn't have the right barcode on it, they're going to say, no, we're not going to receive it and we're going to ship it back to you and we're going to charge you a fee for it. And then you have to fix it on your own dollar. So all of those things can equate to significant amounts of time, which costs every company money, and then sometimes does have real dollars and cents associated to it based on fines that they may be levied, or paybacks that they have to give to customers or parts, other parts of their supply chain.
Okay. So the message here is complacency has a cost, right? Or could have a cost.
Definitely.
Is there a calculator moment, maybe a case study where you can give an example of somebody who plugged the numbers in and was like, wow, I didn't realize that doing this manually was this much money that we're leaving on the table?
Yes, absolutely. And so several years ago, we'd listened to some customers and they were kind of talking to us about, well, how can we prove out this business case? How can what we're doing today is working. So it's like we're in that sort of mode. Well, if it isn't broke, we don't really want to fix it, but we know that there's some errors here. There's manual processes. What can we do? So we worked internally to build a calculator, and really allowed the customer to take a hold of the calculator and input their own data. Excuse me. And most of the data was around, well, what sort of error rate are you seeing in your process? What sort of time frame is associated with those error rates where you have to go through and fix it? What is the cost of the waste? Because you got to imagine if they print a label, that's a piece of paper or a sticker or media or whatever you want to call it. If they print a bunch of them incorrectly, then they have to print more of them, and that just wastes labels. They throw it away and what have you. So it allows customers to then put that data in. And so we have a particular manufacturer I have in mind, and our marketing team does a fantastic job, along with our sales team, of talking to customers all the time about asking for case studies and asking for feedback about what they were doing to make their decision. And so we have a customer out in New York that we talked to that was this exact scenario that I'm giving you, and they literally they use our calculator, they put in all the information, while we were actually on the phone with them, and so we saw it happening. and they basically said, "Oh my gosh, so if we look at this just for this one line and we have multiple lines, we were going to see payback." And I can't remember the specific time frame, but it was less than 6 weeks, based on the investment that they were going to put in, that we're going to see payback in less than 6 weeks on this. So it was a no-brainer to sell to their business team and their operational team, and we won the business, and it's a case study for us today.
That's great. Well, I love the fact too that you've got active reach outs to current customers to gather all those, nuggets and, what made people buy from you, because a lot of companies don't really have a deep understanding of their customer and their motivations and their buying behaviors, right? So pivot to supply chain right now. So, supply chains are being rerouted. Manufacturing is going through a lot of reshoring. Country of origin rules are changing, and tariffs are forcing companies to redesign their products and their labels simultaneously. For 30 years, TexLynx has been telling companies that their label infrastructure matters. And now suddenly it's obvious to everyone, right? So what does that look like when the problem you've been solving for 3 decades becomes a front page supply chain crisis overnight? And how do you scale to capture demand that you've been building towards that maybe never expected to arrive this fast?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, and change happens so quickly. And sometimes it doesn't, right? But especially in manufacturing, it takes a while for those changes to happen. But then when they do come to a head, they do change very quickly. The great news about our business is we have the ability to rapidly respond, to elevate our overall, our teams to be able to answer the questions and to quickly, address the challenges and the issues and the concerns that our customers are having. We actually we have the benefit of hearing from multiple channels within the world of barcode labeling. So we sell through a multitude of different value-added resellers and distribution networks and end user customers. And then we're members of associations like AIM and GS1. And so listening to those corporations and those companies inside of those organizations, as well as our VARs, our distributors, and our end users, we're sort of on the forefront of the challenges and the issues. So trying to really address and looking at those challenges, evaluating the priorities and sort of the trends. And I would say trends maybe isn't even the best word, because they're not prospective trends, they're happening today. And so looking at what those are, the regulations that are there, working with our development team and making sure that we're providing updates to software that are going to meet the expectations or the necessities, happen pretty quickly. I think I don't know if that totally answers the question or not, but responding to the challenges has become a sort of a regular occurrence in our business, and something that I think that we're really good at because we have an agile environment and our people are very knowledgeable. Our support team is fantastic. Our development team has been with us. I think the average tenure of our developers are 20 years.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
yeah, we've been there for quite a while.
So it's great that you have these sort of leading indicators, right? The surge is coming, but
Yeah.
you're a 41-person team, and you told me earlier that every phone call that comes in gets answered by a live person. So tell me a little bit more granular, like what does a small team have to do to handle that surge? Did you have to add headcount? Did you have to change operational processes? Like how do you prepare for some demand that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, good question. So we spent a lot of time and energy trying to understand what our customers wanted and needed. And in this space, because a lot of the companies in our space are not gigantic corporations. You mentioned our business unit is 41 people. So there is an efficiency that needs to be handled, and various different operational processes that we need to hone in on to make sure that we're able to answer the calls from the customers and the resellers and the distributors. So we went through a process of evaluating and asking customers what they liked and didn't like about our support process. And we went through a knowledge-centric system evaluation and said, how are we going to build a really good support center for the people that want self-help? And we listened to the customers, we listened to our own employees, we listened to our partners, and we started to build sort of that ecosystem of our support around sort of that feedback. But then the idea was, is in one of the responses that we kept getting from a lot of people and thinking about it ourselves is, what do you hate most about trying to get support on any technology? And that is waiting in a hold queue or having to push one and ask for an administrator or a customer support representative. And it was a little bit of kicking and screaming from the team because everybody's like, there's no way we're going to be able to answer all these phone calls. And so what we did is we went through a series of months of different questions that we were going to ask and how we were going to elevate and escalate and how we were going to prioritize the calls that were coming in so that everybody could get them answered. And we started to do it a little bit slowly. So we kept a queue, and then we also had a live answering team, and really tested out the process. And once we started to see that we were capable of doing it at a smaller level, then we scaled it throughout the business. And the people, our team started seeing the success and then hearing and seeing the feedback from the customers and how much greater appreciation they had for not waiting in a queue for 25 or 30 minutes. So that took us 3 to 6 months to kind of start that from beginning to end. And we've been answering every call. We say every call. I would say it's probably in that 99% range. But what happens is if there ends up being a really big influx of phone calls, it'll go to a voicemail, so that they don't have to sit in a hold queue, and then they'll get called back. And typically, a callback is less than 5 minutes.
Oh, that's good.
So it just depends on when we resolve the other calls. So, we have tiers, tier one, tier two, and tier three. We also have a lot of self-help, like I said, in our support system. And we've gotten better at ensuring that the articles that are in our support center are elevated based on the questions people are asking so that they're more easily searchable. And then we have just a fantastic, like I said, marketing team that continues to ask the market what they see is really good in TexLynx. And one of them is the idea that we answer our calls live. And then the team just loves that. And there's competitive, situations internally to make sure that, we're answering all these calls, and we have a dashboard on an electronic, situation that is telling them where they're at and how many calls are coming in and who's on what call at that point in time. So it's just been a really good environment to be able to answer those calls.
That's great. And was this, a deliberate strategy that you wanted to create as a differentiator for the company, or were you having to quickly build this while the surge was going on?
No, it was sort of a concerted effort and strategy because we needed to differentiate ourselves. We've everybody knows that barcode labeling's been around for a long time. In fact, I was reading something the other day that a couple of guys in college had generated the idea of a barcode back in the 1950s. It didn't, and they patented it, but it didn't actually become a thing. It didn't get scanned in a grocery store until like 1974, I think it
Oh,
was.
wow.
Um, so the software's been around for a really long time. Commerce has been around for a really long time. So the market is aged. The market is very competitive. And so how can you differentiate? Because at the end of the day, if you take a piece of paper with a barcode label on it, you can't tell who designed it, who printed it. It's just a piece of paper with a barcode on it. And so differentiating your business to a customer becomes really important. And that service and support aspect has been a way that we've been able to do it. And like I said, our team continues to get accolades from the market. We've won a bunch of different awards. The Stevie Award is one that our customer support team continues to win. And it's just been a really good feather in their cap, and one that we continuously get feedback from customers on. So yeah, we definitely thought more and more about it deliberately to say, okay, our implementation side of the world is really good and we get great accolades. So how can we push that to the support side to make sure that people say, yeah, when you call TexLynx, you're going to get a live person and they're going to be able to help you pretty quickly.
Yeah, super smart strategy because I think a lot of people think, oh, there's a surge, I got to hire more people, right? But you're pointing out that there are other strategies that you can put in place, ahead of time, and you should be thinking about those types of things because a surge in demand is a great problem. Everybody would love that problem, right? But if you can't handle it, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, and I mean, all leaders are like, one of the things that, you want to develop people, you want to grow people, but if you can grow your business without adding operational cost, that's one thing that we're all challenged with and faced with. And so a way to be able to do that is just to continuously work on improvements and figuring out how the process works so that you can make their time as efficient as possible, but then also deliver a really good product to the customer.
Yeah, and giving your customers a great experience. So everybody appreciates not being in a wait queue.
Yeah.
You're serving, hundreds of thousands of companies through a network of 1,500 resellers and integrators. And most of your customers think of themselves as customers of Zebra or their local VAR, not customers of TexLynx. So you have global scale with a 41-person Americas team because of that channel, but you also have a brand that most of your end users have never heard of. And you've spent, 17 years building this, starting as an account manager. So what does that kind of patience and depth in a single niche teach you about building something that actually lasts? And what does it also cost you in terms of shortcuts that you never got to take?
Um, I think, and I'll go to this analogy that we've chatted about previously, but it takes pressure and time. I'll throw in there the analogy from the movie Shawshank Redemption, but it is the constant communication and the education to the teams and to the market about the idea that, hey, what you have is great and it runs, but there's an efficiency that can be gained, and so we consistently have those messages in the market, and we consistently share those messages with customers when we're talking to them all the time to think about what the impact is of manual process versus automation, of trying to mitigate your overall risk by automating this process without having this manual intervention. It's educating ourselves about the challenges that customers are faced with when they're actually using our solution. So that's something that we don't take for granted. We don't want to just sell somebody a solution because we think it's great. We want to sell them something that's going to really change their business for the good, help them overcome an issue or a challenge. We're not trying to be something that we're not. We are sort of maybe the idea of, if we use the analogy all the time, you're an inch deep and you're a mile wide. Well, we're the opposite. We're a mile deep and an inch wide. So we're the experts in barcode labeling, and that's what we want to be. We find partners, for other things if we need to, especially as it relates to, pieces and parts of the business, from either that be a hardware side of things, or like I said before, is maybe ancillary software applications that help companies, do the whole ecosystem. And growth of individuals. That's the other big part about it is that we, interestingly enough, in an environment where, and you mentioned it earlier with my career, is it's unheard of to have people working for corporations, especially in our software environment, in our size, for long periods of time. But I would say that, I mean, first of all, my leadership team has been here. There's not a single person on my leadership team that hasn't been here for less than 10 years.
Wow.
And then the average tenure of sort of our sales team is 15 years. The average tenure of our support team, which tends to see a lot of turnover, I last time we looked at it was, I think, 8 years. And so there's a lot of longevity there and a lot of knowledge there. And part of it comes because our product is stable. We get a lot of great feedback. Is everybody, completely satisfied with everything? No, because everybody has different challenges and there's ways that they want to do things. But the people that work here take pride in doing what they do and satisfying the customer challenges. and they really want to, do well because the culture that we've built here is based on the ideal team player, which is being humble, being hungry, and being smart. So we want to make sure that customers are feel this idea that we're really in it with them to help them overcome a challenge or an issue.
Sure. So then where does growth come from? I mean, you're already in a lot of countries, you've got a lot of clients, there's also a lot of consolidation at play, right? So is it getting a large company all on the same system because you're not having to integrate various systems? Is it going after new logos? What's the growth strategy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you mentioned it a few times is we have a significant install base across a multitude of countries, and that's probably conservative. We don't want to overestimate it, but it might be quite much larger than that.
Mhm.
Um, but the world is huge. The reality is that there is still opportunity to grow. And while I said barcode labeling's been around since the 70s, there are still companies that can gain efficiencies inside of their process. So there's still abilities to be able to sell solutions to companies instead of, and when I say solutions, I mean sort of the full environment, not just a pointed, desktop application that's going to solve one challenge on a production line. The idea of what does the whole ecosystem of labeling look like from conception to an actual print job coming out of a piece, out of a printer. So the growth, comes from education and consolidation and sort of the idea that these huge companies have multiple locations and may use 4 different software applications for barcode labeling. So the growth isn't necessarily market cap growth, it is growth for our business inside of those companies where they're already a customer, but we don't have 100% share of their wallet. So it's working to educate them and working with them to try and streamline the types of products that they use so they don't have a bunch of disparate applications. And so I talk about efficiency all the time. Sorry if I'm sounding like a broken record there, but the efficiency part of it really becomes significant. And IT doesn't love to manage so many different applications and touch so many different desktops and servers and, production lines and everything else. If they can have less products that they have to manage, from what we hear them say to us all the time, it's better for them to do it that way. So growth is coming from that. But, the other part about it is that very small business and small business make up a significant portion, especially in the Americas, of our overall environment from companies. And there are companies starting up and growing every day. And so we see that we can grow with them. The great thing about TexLynx, and we have multiple brands, while you said before we're a quiet company, maybe people don't know TexLynx, but they know the brands of our products in CodeSoft and LabelView and Label Matrix. We have those 3 brands that do similar things, but they all service and have intended uses, intended fits for various different pieces. But if somebody starts with Label Matrix as an example, and all of a sudden they grow and they become a heck of a lot more complex and they need more,
Mhm.
they can grow to the next level of our products like LabelView, and then they can grow into CodeSoft, and then they can grow into automation. So they can't really outgrow us. So that's a lot of the growth that comes from us is growth inside of a business that's already an existing customer. It's going after very small businesses and growing with them. And then, there obviously is some competition out there. And so there's turnover and churn from competitors if they're changing something that customers don't like.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a great future that you're working towards. So last question here, Doug. You've spent 17 years becoming one of the most recognized names in a market that most people walk past every day without noticing. So for a founder or business owner who's listening, who is building something in a niche right now, something important that maybe their customers don't fully appreciate yet, what is the one thing you know now that you wish you had known when you started? You gave me a lot of wisdom around culture and service and the books that you're reading and the groups that you're part of. So let's hear some sage advice from you.
Some sage advice. I would say that the biggest part, at least for me, which I guess isn't even really an aha moment, but the old adage of the customer is always right. we do, people say that and we still tend to say that. And if we're a consumer, we always want to be right. In a business to business environment, sometimes customers don't know what they don't know. And so I would say that the advice is stick to the educational aspect. And if you partner with a customer, where you truly have their best interest in mind. Yes, we all want to sell solutions and sell our product and make money. At the end of the day, TexLynx and the business that we've built here, especially TexLynx Corporation, is saying we want to be reliable, we want to be stable, we want you to know that we're going to be there for the long run, and we have your best interests in mind, and we want to be vested in the growth of your business. So the nugget that I would say, and while I'm sort of always, I've learned from a lot of really good people that I've kind of always had that mentality, but sometimes you veer and zig and zag and kind of, go down a different path, is sticking to the idea that don't let just the shiny object change your focus. Because if you build these relationships with these companies and they look at you truly as, a partner, even though they're spending money with you and they're going to try and save money, so they want you to give it to them for a really good deal. Uh, they're going to tend to think, okay, they really truly, yeah, they have something to sell, but they really truly have our interest in mind. And how that comes to fruition is we oftentimes will tell customers, let us look at your environment. Let us talk to you. If it will come back to you. And it's happened several times where we'll be on a call and they're telling us their process and their solution. And the answer to their questions are, oh, it looks like you guys are actually doing some really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's not anything right now that we would suggest that you spend with us to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you grow and we want to escalate or we want to elevate or we want to change this process, then definitely we can. But, basically saying you don't have to buy anything from us today
Mm-hmm.
is a great way for them to come back and say, wow, I can trust you because I believe that you're not trying to sell me something I don't need.
Yeah. And that's a great leadership perspective. How do you push that down throughout the whole organization, right? So everybody's got that customer first mindset. Are there certain tactics that you're using, books you're reading? How
Yeah.
do you do that across the company?
Yeah, well, so I mentioned the Ideal Team Player book from Patrick Lencioni. It's a fantastic culture book. We talk about that all the time. There's in business, obviously, everybody understands there's always conflict, there's always confrontation, and there's always business challenge. And you have salespeople that need to hit quotas and they want to sell stuff. So it is just a constant sort of communication and listening. The reality is, and I'm talking a lot in this podcast, but the reality is an environment when you're speaking to a customer, you're better off asking some pointed questions and then just listening the entire time. And that bleeds down through the communication that we have on our leadership teams, the communication that my leaders have with their teams, how they evaluate, opportunities, how we put in the eyes of our people the voice of the customer. And when they're coming back to us, and asking us for certain things, we'll reply back to those customers and share with them what the plan is. And sometimes we have to tell them, yeah, we understand that you really want that, but that's really niche and specific to your business, and that's just not something that we're gonna do.
Mhm.
And so it goes back to that comment, is pressure and time. It is communication and education. So pressure isn't necessarily always the right word because that has a negative connotation, but it is consistency, and it is that communication that happens time and time and time again. And how we deliver that to our teams is just honest and open communication and being vulnerable to understand if we make a mistake, or um, if we don't know something, we're going to tell customers we don't know, but we're going to go find out and we're going to come back to you and we're going to get back to you. We aren't going to just let it go.
And how do you keep yourself sort of, besides your awesome leadership team, sounds like a great working environment. What are there outside resources that you utilize, like groups or mentors or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of individuals over my career that I can point to that I've learned some really good things from, and people that I've learned some not so good things from. And I'm involved in various different networking associations, and one of them being Vistage. And my cohort is fantastic in Wisconsin here. And so that sort of peer environment and listening to what other challenges presidents and CEOs have across different industries, it doesn't, in an operational setting from a business perspective and a strategy perspective, if you're a manufacturing company, yes, you have some specific things that you're challenged with versus a software company and things you're challenged with. But at the end of the day, we're also challenged with how do we make sure that we attract and retain great talent? How do we ensure that we do great career development for our employees? I always tell my team, because that was told to me early on, is at the end of the day, if an employee leaves the company, hopefully they're leaving the company on good terms and saying, man, I learned so much from this company and I'm taking that to my next place.
Yeah.
If somebody fails in a business, I want the leaders to be able to look in the mirror and say, well, okay, I did everything I could to try and make them successful, and it just wasn't a fit for X, Y, or Z. And the ability to be able to bounce things like that off of cohorts in Vistage and other networking associations that I'm a part of has been, worth every penny. Along with being introduced to people like Patrick Lencioni. He's been a speaker at some of our events. And so it's just been really invaluable. The local MMAC, so our Milwaukee Metropolitan Association of Commerce that we're involved in, is very good, at least in the state of Wisconsin. But various different other associations like national associations like GS1 and AIM have been great for us as well.
Okay, great. Well, Doug, this has been a genuinely grounded conversation. For our listeners who want to learn more about what you do or find you or maybe about Vistage, where should they go?
You can check me out on LinkedIn for sure. You can call me. My information is, you can call our phone number on our website, but you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm a phone call away. I'm an email away. I'm a part of the Vistage network, so you can find me there if you're a Vistage member. And I would love to have a conversation.
Awesome. And to our Think Small listeners, if today's conversation reminded you that most important infrastructure in your business might be the thing you are taking for granted right now, share this podcast with somebody who needs to hear it. Thank you so much for your time, Doug. It's been a truly amazing experience to hear what you've built there.
Yeah, thanks, Denise. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for everybody for listening. Sorry if I got a little long-winded, but
no worries. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?